A moving truck was parked in his driveway, and the tension was thick in the air. His father's face had turned that familiar shade of purple, a clear sign that trouble was brewing, while his mother stood beside him, tears streaming down her cheeks. She was desperately pleading with him, attempting to manipulate him with the emotional weight of their familial bond. "Ethan, you can't do this to us," she cried, grasping his arm with urgency. He looked at her hand, once a source of comfort, now a symbol of the control that had governed his life for 32 years. With a heavy heart, he gently removed her grip, feeling his throat tighten and his heart race with a blend of anxiety and resolve. As a police officer approached with a clipboard, Ethan's father erupted, his voice booming, "Is this how you treat family?" Neighbors likely overheard the commotion, while his mother sank onto the porch swing, lamenting about ungrateful children and their dire situation. The officers exchanged uncertain glances, unsure how to handle the family drama unfolding in broad daylight. Ethan's mother lamented how they had already sought refuge with his brothers, Adam and Jake, and now had nowhere else to go. The realization struck him hard. He was their last resort, not their first choice. When his father stormed off, spitting on the welcome mat as he left, Ethan felt a tumult of emotions wash over him. He knew he needed to recount how his life had spiraled into this chaotic moment. As the youngest of 3 boys, Ethan often felt like an afterthought, a mistake his mother would acknowledge only after a few too many glasses of wine. While Adam and Jake thrived in their careers, one a surgeon, the other an investment banker, Ethan had taken a more unconventional path. What they didn't realize was that he had been saving diligently, living below his means, and eventually found success at a software company that granted him stock options. When he finally closed on his dream home, a renovated Craftsman with a stunning view of the lake, he wanted to surprise his family by hosting a housewarming party without revealing he was the owner. The expressions on their faces when they discovered it was his home were priceless. For a fleeting moment, he felt like the successful son they could proudly tout. However, that joy was short-lived. Just a week later, his parents arrived unannounced with a moving truck, expecting to move in without any prior discussion. His mother breezed past him, directing the movers as if she owned the place. Ethan stood in shock, grappling with disbelief. They had sold their house without even consulting their son. When he finally found his voice, he firmly informed them they could not stay. Their expressions twisted in disbelief and disappointment, while his father's anger simmered. They were his parents, after all, and believed they had the right to impose their will. The confrontation escalated, and in a moment of frustration, Ethan called the police, setting off a chain of events that would alter everything. The aftermath was swift. His phone buzzed incessantly with messages from family, all portraying him as the ungrateful son who had cast his elderly parents out. The situation felt surreal as he received calls from his brothers, both of whom had refused to take their parents in. The realization hit him. They all assumed he would be the one to yield, the one to accommodate their needs as he always had. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, insisting that family takes care of family. But for the first time, he felt that obligation shift. When he discovered that $22,000 had been withdrawn from a joint savings account his mother had set up for him years ago, his anger boiled over. When he confronted her, she dismissed his outrage, framing her actions as normal family support. In that moment, something within him snapped. He realized that this was not love or support but manipulation. Ethan decided to reclaim his life and sever ties. He blocked their numbers and closed the joint account, feeling a sense of liberation. He had spent too long seeking their conditional approval and love. That night, he walked through his empty house, his sanctuary, and for the first time in years, he felt at peace. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from his family became a palpable presence, a void where familial obligation had once thrived. He immersed himself in making his house a true reflection of himself, painting walls in colors that resonated with him and reveling in the freedom to enjoy his space without criticism. He formed genuine connections with new friends who showed him a healthier way to relate to others. After a month, a letter arrived from his mother, containing a check for $2,000 and a note that read, "You're right. I should have asked." It was hardly an apology, and he tore it up, understanding that some debts couldn't be settled with money. When his brother Jake called to discuss their parents' attempts to move in with him again, Ethan felt a mix of vindication and sadness. They had failed to respect boundaries, and Jake's admission of guilt offered a small sense of validation. Their conversation marked a turning point, leading to an invitation to a barbecue that would allow them to gather without their parents' influence. As the seasons shifted, Ethan continued to build his life on his own terms. He sought therapy not out of a sense of brokenness, but to ensure he remained whole and to explore the patterns that had shaped his relationships. Through therapy, he learned about healthy boundaries, guilt, and the importance of mutual respect. At Jake's barbecue, he felt a renewed connection with his brother, who made an effort to truly understand him. The holidays came, and while his parents sent him a generic Christmas card with a gift card, it only deepened the distance between them. He chose not to respond, focusing instead on his own life and the relationships he had nurtured. On New Year's Eve, as he stood by the lake watching fireworks, he reflected on his journey. His phone buzzed with messages from friends and family who valued him for who he was, free from the burden of expectation. Ethan had learned that sometimes, the family we are born into isn't the family we truly belong with, and that the most valuable possession is the courage to walk away from toxic relationships. The price of his peace, embodied in that $2,000, was worth every penny. As he welcomed the new year, he felt ready to embrace the possibilities ahead.